Hey, what's up, people? Pizowell here, and today I want to talk to you guys about 1983's Mountaintop Motel Massacre. Now, this is partially going to be a review of the movie as well as a review of this new Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray release for the film. And Mountaintop Motel Massacre holds a place in my heart. Not so much the movie as the VHS artwork for the film. It's artwork that leapt off the video store shelves for me back in the day. And I also love the tagline for this film: "Please do not disturb Evelyn. She already is." And Mountaintop Motel Massacre revolves around Evelyn, a former mental patient turned proprietor of the Mountaintop Motel, which is a series of kind of ramshackle cabins that she rents out for $7 a night. Now, on this particular dark and stormy night, business is good because all of her cabins are rented out. However, unfortunately for her patrons, this is also the same night that she decides to completely flip her lid and start killing them all off one by one. Now, right off the bat, Mountaintop Motel Massacre lets the audience know that you're in for a wacky ride. In the beginning, we have Evelyn, this little old lady who has a history of mental instability, let's just say, and her daughter. Although I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be her daughter or her granddaughter because the actress playing the role looks way too young to be her daughter, but it is in fact supposed to be her daughter. And the daughter begins performing a seance in order to communicate with her dead father to let her father know that Evelyn is acting a bit off again and may need to be hospitalized. Now, why she doesn't just pick up the phone and call the police and say, "Hey, my mom's acting a little loopy again, can you help me?" I don't know. She decides to perform this seance to communicate with her dead father and let him know. Well, Evelyn interrupts this little seance and she freaks out and she's thrashing around with this little sickle, destroying this and destroying that. And spoiler alert, although how can you really spoil a nearly 40-year-old movie? She accidentally kills her daughter. Well, the police show up, and by the police, I mean the sheriff, who seems to be the only cop in this entire town, and we have a preacher who just happens to be staying at the Mountaintop Motel. They put their heads together, and they decide that this is clearly an accident, that this young woman accidentally killed herself with a sickle. And let's just call it a day. And these sequences are filmed in a very surreal, kind of dreamlike way. And I think the director's intention was to depict Evelyn's mounting insanity, but it gives the film this very dreamlike quality. And although the rest of the film isn't shot in a similar manner, that dreamlike quality just permeates this movie because of just how absurd and nonsensical the movie is. However, it's because the film is so absurd and nonsensical that I found it compelling in an utterly bewildering kind of way. It's almost as if this film cast a spell on me and I could not remove my eyes from the screen. Now, the movie gets even stranger when we're introduced to the people who are renting the cabins at the Mountaintop Motel. And this is an eclectic bunch of people. We've got the preacher who turns out to be a drunk, and his idea of dinner is a bottle of Old Crow, and as he calls them, Vienna sausages. We have a young married couple, and the husband has got to be one of the most countrified people I've ever seen in a movie. Their dialogue goes something like this: "I'm so horny I don't know what to do with myself." "Oh, just hold your horses." "It's not my horse I'm worried about." Then you have a guy who picks up these two stranded women on the side of the road who claims to be the owner of Columbia Records. And he offers to give these two women an audition in his cabin at the Mountaintop Motel. Now, at one point, he begins seducing one of the ladies in the bed, while the other lady, who's a little skeptical about his claims of owning Columbia Records, she's the smart one, hasn't decided to quite dive in just yet. So the guy who owns Columbia Records looks at her and says, "You don't want this to be a solo album now, do you?" And then you have this guy who is a carpenter, and he's traveling to try to find work. He's just a hardworking guy out there trying to find work. And he's way too normal to be in this movie. And he's really the only character in this movie that I kind of felt sorry for. And there are some absolutely hilarious yet completely confusing moments in this film. For instance, there's a sequence in which one of the characters is bitten in the face by a snake. His wife runs out of the cabin, runs upon the Columbia Records guy, who calls 911 for help. The 911 operator answers. He says, "I need to speak to the sheriff." The 911 operator tries to ring the sheriff. However, again, because the sheriff is the only cop in this entire town, the sheriff's in a bar drinking. So 911 dispatcher says, "Hey, I can't get a hold of the sheriff. What's the problem?" Now, finally, at this point, the 911 dispatcher wants to know what the problem is. Columbia Records guy says, "Well, I've got a guy here who's been bitten by a snake." The 911 dispatcher goes, "I'll try ringing the sheriff back later." Never during the course of their conversation are an ambulance or paramedics brought up. I guess the dispatcher and the Columbia Records guy both just thought, well, we'll get the sheriff here and he'll suck the venom out of this guy's face. I don't know. And then the Columbia Records guy goes off to audition these two women in his cabin, completely forgets about the snakebite guy. And then we get to a certain point in the film where even the snakebite guy's wife is completely over it. She's just like, "Are you okay now? You good? You all right?" While this guy's writhing around in a semi-conscious state with half of his head swollen out to here. And then you have Evelyn herself, who is this little old lady. She's not intimidating looking. She's not athletic looking. She's got this little sickle thing. If she were to come at you in an aggressive manner, you would have a really good shot of defending yourself, disarming her, or just getting away from her without getting hurt too badly, unless she just snuck up on you from behind. And she doesn't look like the kind of person who would be good at sneaking. Yet when the characters in this movie see her coming at them, this little old lady with a sickle, they just stand there, completely resigned to their fate. Like, here comes this little old lady. She's holding this sickle. She looks like she wants to kill me. Oh, well, I've had a good run. And even toward the end of the film, the sheriff comes face to face with Evelyn. And the look on his face of complete and utter bewilderment, seeing her come at him in an aggressive manner with this little sickle. If I could watch myself watching this movie, I'm sure that is the exact same face that I was making throughout the duration of this movie. It's just like he sees her coming at him and he's just like, seriously? Really? For real? And that sums up this movie perfectly. Now, I can't say that Mountaintop Motel Massacre is a good movie because it's not. What I can say about Mountaintop Motel Massacre, however, is that it is absurdly and bewilderingly compelling. I could not take my eyes off of this movie, and I found it, quite frankly, highly entertaining. Now, Mountaintop Motel Massacre is not your typical early 80s slasher movie. The characters in it are not your typical slasher movie villain fodder. Evelyn is definitely not your typical slasher movie villain. And really, all those elements make the film unique, and I think actually more watchable. If you've not seen Mountaintop Motel Massacre, I recommend it. This Blu-ray from Vinegar Syndrome would be a great way to introduce yourself to the film. If you're a fan of Mountaintop Motel Massacre, you definitely want to look into picking up this Blu-ray from Vinegar Syndrome and adding it to your collection. First, let's take a look at the presentation. This release comes with not one, but two reversible sleeves featuring what I do believe is the original poster art for the theatrical release of the film, the VHS artwork for the film, as well as two other artwork designs for Mountaintop Motel Massacre. This release is a DVD Blu-ray double pack, and this release is all region. It's region A, B, and C, which means that it will play on any Blu-ray player anywhere in the world. As for picture quality and sound quality, this release is newly scanned and restored in 2K from 35mm negative elements. Vinegar Syndrome did an absolutely excellent job with this release. The picture quality on this release is fantastic. It looks crisp, it looks clean. It definitely does not look like a movie that was shot back in 1983. I would give the picture quality on this release a solid 4.5 out of 5. Same with the audio quality. I thought the audio was great on this release too. The movie looks great and the movie sounds great on this release. As far as extras are concerned, first up, we have Under the Influence, an interview with assistant cameraman David Aiken. It's 12 minutes and 30 seconds in length. Mr. Aiken discusses being hired by Jim McCullough Jr. to work on one of his previous films and how that led to him working on Mountaintop Motel Massacre. He discusses how the film was completed 3 years before New World Pictures picked it up for distribution, but New World wanted a different ending, so they went in and did 2 days of reshoots on a 3-year-old movie. He discusses the many hats he wore working for the McCulloughs, including cameraman, editor, etc. He discusses how excited he is for the Blu-ray release and the opportunity for the film to reach a whole new audience and more. Very nice interview with Mr. Aiken. Next up, we have Mountaintop Motel Memories, an interview with production designer Drew Edward Hunter. It's 20 minutes and 58 seconds in length. Mr. Hunter discusses getting hired by Jim McCullough to work on Mountaintop Motel Massacre and his responsibilities as both production designer and makeup effects artist. He discusses building and dressing the underground tunnels in the film and having to recreate them years later for the reshoots. He shares memories of the cast, the locations, and the shooting schedule. He discusses writing the new ending for the film that New World requested and painting the original poster art for the film's release, and much more. Very nice interview with Mr. Hunter. We get an original theatrical trailer, although mine did not have audio. I'm not sure if that's a problem with this release or just a problem with my Blu-ray. We get a behind-the-scenes image gallery and an archival article gallery. This is a very nice Blu-ray release for Mountaintop Motel Massacre from the fine folks over at Vinegar Syndrome. If you've not seen Mountaintop Motel Massacre, I recommend it. This Blu-ray would be a great way to introduce yourself to the film. If you're a fan of Mountaintop Motel Massacre, you definitely want to look into picking up this Blu-ray and adding it to your collection. You've got great picture quality and sound quality on this release and some really nice extras. I'll post a link to Vinegar Syndrome's website in the description. Go over and check them out. If you've seen Mountaintop Motel Massacre, please let me know your thoughts on it down in the comments section below. If you like this video, please leave it a thumbs up and consider sharing it on social media. As always, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care, and until next time, peace. Join the A Buck a Month Club and help support my channel on Patreon. Thank you to my current patrons, Kevin Smythe, Orc145626, B-Movie Mike, Robert Sobel, Turi Delamore, Stephen Flanagan, Lori Holt, Craig Farrand, Farron Sutton, Jeremiah Lambert, Grindhouse Grotto, Derek Jana, Demon Waffles, Simon Clark, Stone Gassman, Zachary Barton, Lauren Dixon, James Welch, Eli Geisler, Jeff Overing, Pete Toll, Kyle McGuire, Jay the Stingray, Andrew McDonald, Dave Barnes, Jonathan Lundy, Chris Gonzalez, Trenton Bowser, Jason Breitenbach, Brandon Bisdick, Steak Sauce, OG Myers, Mark Striano, Jeff Gardner, Travis Davis, The Obsoletionist, Chris Earls, and Kevin Fitzpatrick. Say hello to the internet, Jeremy.
Hello to the internet.